My top 10 lateral raise machines. Welcome to you from Domination Nation Gym. I'm going to give you my top 10 lateral raise machines. Now, obviously, I've not used every lateral raise machine. I've used many of them, and I can give you a very, very informed opinion. But it's always going to come, you know, we always all have our own bias. I promise you're going to want to watch the whole thing. This will be the most exhaustive, comprehensive evaluation of lateral raise machines. I'm going to talk about probably 30 to 35 specific machines, and I'm going to rank all of the ones I have, 16 dedicated lateral machines. This post from Kaz early in the year, and I kind of just cringed. So this is a classic example of why you don't always have to agree with your favorite fitness influencer. So I don't have anything against Kaz, but I think he's totally wrong in this instance. I think there's absolutely a place for a lateral raise machine compared to dumbbell lateral raises and cable lateral raise variations. And let's explore this further. So let's take a quick peek at the advantages, disadvantages of a machine versus dumbbell and cables. Theoretically, there's more stability, and you can create constant tension. Most of them tend to be end range bias. Now, there's ways around that, and depending on the machine, that may not be always the potential. There's less chance for, cheating, less chance for traps to take over, depending on the machine you use, of course. The biggest challenge is it's a fixed movement path. Now, there are ways you can make that not the case, but often you're targeting one specific area, medial, lateral, posterior delt, depending on the machine you use, and you don't necessarily have the same ability to bias different angles like you theoretically would with dumbbells or cables. Cables give you the chance potentially of more freedom of movement, but often you're constrained by the circular shape of the actual cable pulley, and you often lose tension past 90 degrees, whereas certain cams on machines, you can get tension all the way along the shape of the cam. Dumbbells tend to be more challenging. At the top, it's uneven. Dumbbell and cable lateral raise variations. This video is just about the lateral raise machines, but click the link above. I'll show you my top 10 favorite lateral raise cable handle variations. So what do you guys think about lateral raise machines with free-floating handles versus with elbow/arm, forearm pads? So let's take a look at lateral raise machines with elbow, forearm pads versus just handles. So the theoretical advantage is you take the risk completely out of the equation. You don't have necessarily forearm fatigue or cheating, and there tends to be pure tension on the medial delt. Now, the challenge with many machines, is they only target the medial delt. Now, there's ways around that, but the advantage of a pad is it can lock you in, and you can lean into it, and it can have a little bit longer of a moment arm and a more predictable path versus the handles. What tends to happen, there's a little more freedom of motion theoretically, but you have to be able to know how to align your body with the machine along the your glenohumeral path to stimulate your delts. But there's more opportunity potentially to stimulate not just medial delt but lateral and posterior delt with free-floating handles. So the pads do tend to be good for older shoulders or irritated shoulders. The range of motion tends to be much less. We'll go over like the strength curve in just a second, but it's a more repeatable technique. The disadvantage is obviously it fits some people poorly. The pads may not align. We'll go over round versus flat pads, and you can have some shoulder irritation. It does absolutely remove some freedom of motion. And like I said, it's harder to bias other parts of the delt other than the medial delt with most lateral raise machines. It's just something you have to be aware of that have a fixed pad. So lateral raise machines with just the handles, the advantages, again, are you have a little bit more freedom of motion. You can internally and externally rotate. Now, I'll show you how I can do that on round pads on my Strive. That is a nice feature. If you have bad shoulders, you really want to kind of stay more externally rotated. And it's easier to bias other parts of the deltoid. Again, there's advantages, disadvantages to both, as I'm showing you, but the free-floating handle is going to give you a little longer movement arm, a little more potential stress and tension, but you have to know how to position your body, and you have to make sure you're not cheating with your wrist or forearm. You tend to get a little bit more trap involvement sometimes with that because your range of motion tends to be larger. But you have to be able to know how to brace your body a little bit more with the handles than you do with the pads. Again, the disadvantage with the handles, you can and you will get a little bit more trap involvement. It's not a bad thing per se, but it's something you have to be aware of if you're looking to just isolate them only. But the grip tension, elbow changes, cheating through hand positions, a little bit of momentum. That's more of an issue with the handle option than the pad option. That tends to lock you in a little better. But again, there's more variation and variety most of the time with handles to do it both ways. So it's often a thing of preference, but if your goal is development, the handles can show some advantages that the pads don't. Handle machines with neutral handles versus angled handles. Let's look at that. So what about the difference between neutral handles, the palms facing in, versus angled handles? So neutral handles, we're talking carrying arsenal type movements. So it tend to be a little bit more natural plane of motion. People that have sore supraspinatus or some glenohumeral impingement, it can be a much more comfortable movement. It does tend to lock you in a little bit more. Sometimes if you're a wider frame, it can be an issue with getting enough range of motion. There is some self-alignment with it, but not as much as you can get with the angled handles. And what I find is it feels good in the bottom half. Like the top half of the movement, it tends to, your traps just take over. There is a reduced internal rotation. So sometimes, like I said, if you have sore shoulders or you have impingement, sometimes these handles feel more comfortable than the angled handle variation. And obviously, the handles that it aligns your wrist, there tends to be less wrist discomfort when you use neutral handles and less AC joint or shoulder cuff or supraspinatus issues. So the disadvantages, it tends to bias medial delt more. It's hard to bias the anterior delt or the posterior. Again, there's things you can do, ways around that. And the handles, angled handles tend to allow steering. Like you can adjust your body position a little bit better and easier than you can with the neutral handles. And again, the palms down handles tend to be harder for people with larger frames. A couple of the machines out there, sometimes you don't get as much pre-stretch in the area, and there tends to be a lot of trap involvement at heavier loads. So the angled handles, they tend to allow a little bit more internal external rotation, a little bit more alignment of the body when you use it during the movement. So we're talking like, Atlantis, Panada type machines that the handles are angled. Sometimes it's the length of that handle, as I'll show you in a minute, makes a difference as well. But it often is easier to keep tension on the deltoids in the bottom half. And there is I find less trap involvement. And what I find with these angled handles is you can come higher in your range of motion past 90 degrees a little more comfortably than you can with the palms down handles. And again, a lot of these times with these handles, as I'll show you, you can use a wristless grip. You don't even have to grab the handle. You can kind of just put your wrist inside and use a wristless grip. But you can have more opportunity and options to bias different heads of the deltoid. Remember, there's like 7 heads of the deltoid, just crazy, the anatomy. They can feel smoother. Again, it depends on your size. But there's advantages and disadvantages to both. It's often a user-dependent thing. But for the most part, the neutral palms down handles, they're smooth, but they can have too much trap, and sometimes they're better for smaller frames, whereas the angled handles tend to allow you to recruit more different heads of the deltoid than just the strict medial delt, just naturally. And they tend to give you the ability to lock into a consistent movement path, sometimes better. And like I said, the top range of motions for the angled handles tends to be smoother, in my opinion. Past 90 degrees, it's hard with the neutral handles. It just doesn't feel as comfortable. And a lot of times you're limited in that top range of motion because you're fixed by the angle of that neutral palm down handle. What would you say is the ideal strength curve for a lateral raise machine? Now, obviously, the advantage of a machine over a dumbbell cable is the ability to use a cam or linkage system to get variable resistance. So very important to understand the optimal strength curve for deltoids in the lateral raise movement. So it depends on the moment arm, your length tension relationship, the force angle biomechanics. We don't need to get crazy technical, but for a lateral raise, like that first 30 degrees is mostly supraspinatus. You're not in a good advantageous. You have poor leverage there. It's the 30 to 60 degree mid-range where you're the strongest and you have the maximum torque. The deltoid arm increases significantly. The 60 to 90 degrees towards the 90 degrees, you're not quite as strong, but you're still decently strong. And as you get towards the top above 90 degrees, you're the weakest. So it's like a bell curve. So you're weak the first 30 degrees and then stronger from 30 to 60 degrees and then still okay, but not as strong from 60 to 90 degrees. And then after 90 to 120 degrees is where you're the weakest. So it's a bell curve. So just keep that in mind when you're choosing machines, choosing movements. You know, you want to take advantage of a cam linkage system. You want to take advantage of a lateral raise machine that's made appropriately so that you can maximize the natural output that your glenohumeral joint, that your shoulder joint has with a lateral raise, front raise, Y raise type movement. What about seated lateral raise machines versus standing lateral raises? Which one's better? So what about standing lateral raise machines versus seated lateral raises? So the standing, you can usually use more weight. It kind of accommodates different sizes better than the seated. You can bias different fibers better. It tends to be more comfortable for people with bigger torsos, longer arms. And obviously there's nothing shoved against your rib cage, so sometimes that's an advantage. But it is easier to cheat. You do tend to get more trap involvement, and you do have to engage some core. So if you have low back issues, it might be an issue. So seated lateral raise machines more stable, give you more stability, but they have less trap involvement. They're easier on the lower back, but they tend to limit your ability to manipulate other parts of the deltoid as much as like a standing. So pure delt isolation, seated, standing. I'll discuss a little bit more as I go over the machines. Let me know in the comments before I proceed, like what your favorite is, seated or standing. But it's good to understand the benefits of each. Let's look at a quick anatomy review. Hey guys, so quick anatomy review. It's very important to actually appreciate and understand the intricate and complex anatomy. Origins and insertions, that's what it's always about. Recognize there's actually 7 divisions of the deltoid muscle. It's not a simple anterior, posterior, medial. And I want you to notice how small the medial slip is compared to the much larger anterior and posterior slip. Like, you have to keep that in mind when you're choosing movements and machines. You know, ultimately you want the most variation. You want the most different options to internally and externally rotate your humerus to stimulate your deltoids from every specific angle. That's absolutely crucial with shoulder training, as many of you know. You can't just do the same movement every single time. Look at the intricate origin insertions and how it fans out. And just look at how small the medial slip of the deltoid is compared to the anterior and posterior. The posterior and anterior is much larger, yet it's paid the least attention often. So I'm going to start out with some just honorable mentions. Going to go over multiple different machines. I may miss some. If I've missed some, just let me know. I'm pretty sure I get all the notable ones. But you guys are going to want to stay to the end, because after this I'm going to go over in detail my list. Honorable mentions. I'm going to start with the Cybex VR1, VR2 lateral raise machine. So this is actually the first lateral raise machine I owned. I like the cam on it. I liked the pads. It's very comfortable. It's actually very small footprint. This is a machine right here. This is the way most people use it. It has flat pads with handles there. This is a newer model that's got the counterweights. This is one of the older models. You can see it's got a small cam, slightly oblong cam. Belt is very, very comfortable. Handles are in decent position. You can get decent range of motion with it. The best benefit of it, honestly, is the footprint. This is how I would suggest using it. You don't. This dude's got some handles. You don't need to do that if that makes you connect with the muscle better. But you can see it's actually, the range of motion is not bad. And look at the cam angle. Next one on the list is the Bodymaster lateral raise. So I love the handles on this. The pivot point that they're inserted at is higher, and I actually like the handles. The cam is actually really good on this machine. It's a great machine. This one has roller pads that I'm talking about, but I really like the Bodymasters. Bodymaster stuff is always solid, but look at the handle position I'm talking about. The handle position is actually perfect. So your hands, you can get yourself aligned in that scapular plane. The angle of the pad is very good, and the cam is actually pretty good. You can see it's kind of a slightly oblong, shorter cam. Next one on the honorable mention list is the Flex Fitness lateral raise. Star Trek kind of remade this. I love the Flex Fitness one that has the flat pads, and I love the angle. I'll show you a video here. The angle is perfect. The Bodymaster's angle is decent too. The angle is really good on this. I love the belt-driven version. The cam's a little too aggressive in my opinion. I would probably own this if I didn't already have a ton of them and I had unlimited space. But this is a great machine. Your Generation Flex stuff is just amazing. But pad is in a comfortable position. You get a crazy stretch with that flat pad. And the belt's just super comfortable. Look at the cam. You see what I'm talking about. It's just a little too aggressive. As you come towards 90, where you're weaker, you're not going to be able to use as much weight. Again, smaller cams are better just because they've fit the movement path better. But look at the stimulation, great movement path. Next one on the list is the Atlantis elbow pad lateral raise. What I like about this version is the chest pad moves in and out. The angle could be a little better to just promote motion along the scapular plane, but as opposed to the other ones I've mentioned so far, the chest pad moves in and out. Old school Atlantis belt ribbon is just money stuff. I love the big counterweight, and obviously the counterweight's going to help you in the very beginning of the movement where you're weak. And I love that it's a slightly smaller cam, just quality machine. Another one on the list is the Nautilus double shoulder, probably the classic, lateral raise machine. I think it was amazing for the time it came out. Definitely a revolutionary idea. There's just way too much friction. The cam is way too aggressive, and the range of motion is not the greatest. A very classic piece. You can see this is the traditional model. It's just a very aggressive cam. This is the updated model. It has the pad. You can see how the pad contours to your elbow better. I like this version better. It's just the weight. You have to keep the weight really low, and the range of motion is kind of crap with this. But friction, honestly, to me, is the biggest issue. I've used this many times. Cool piece, though. And this is the Max Pump updated version. Again, cool piece. Unfortunately, they didn't fix the cam with their version. But you won't have the same friction that you would with the chains. Chance to buy a converted one, I might consider it, but there's just way too much friction in the original machine, and the cam's just a little too aggressive. It's just too aggressive, but it's a phenomenal idea. At the time, honestly, it was a great machine, and people still love the classics. It's just too much friction for me. These next two aren't technically lateral raise machines, but they really are, and I think they're better than a lot of lateral raise machines. The Nautilus 70-degree shoulder I had for many years. Really cool machine. You can use it in and out. And like we showed in the anatomy review, like you're going to get a ton of anterior deltoid and posterior deltoid, and not just medial deltoid. You just have to get used to not having arms and putting the pad in the crux of your elbow when you do the machine. But I actually love that movement. And the only reason I sold it is because I'll show you, I modified my Strive you can do the same thing with an adjustable strength. So another classic piece here. It's nice. It's got a seat belt. But look at the 70-degree angle. That angle will allow you to stimulate a ton of anterior delts. Face out. Again, you just have to get used to the idea of not grabbing something with your arms. And it's just different when you face out on a machine like this. And you're lying back rather than leaning forward. Most lateral raise machines, obviously, that face out, you lean forward. But that really cool machine. The next one is the David rotary shoulder. This is AJ's old office gym out there in Massachusetts. But look at the cool machine. The cool thing was with the cam. I mean, the way the guy's using it here, it's not ideal. You really want to come up higher to take advantage of the cam. But the cam on this is awesome. All right, number 16 is the Star Trek Total Delts. So you can obviously use this machine as a row, as a rear delt, and as a lateral raise machine. Let me show you. This is number 16 on my list. So very cool little unit. Honestly, probably my favorite of the Total series from Star Trek. You can do a row, rear delt movement, and it's got the low cable that you can face in or face out, seated or standing. I'll show you the difference here. I'm using the Watson thick grip handles. I love these things because they rotate. They're real comfortable. But the cable function on this is super smooth. If you're in a commercial gym, it makes more sense. It's just such a small footprint. I haven't felt the need to sort of get rid of it. Even though I don't use it near as much as a lot of other my machines. It's a great option to have. I haven't used that in a while, but that is super smooth. It's actually, I'm not sure what it is that makes it smooth, but it's definitely smoother than any cable machine I've used. Number 15 is the P3 wall lateral raise machine. They have an updated version with like a pad, but I bought this years and years ago and had it shipped from Lithuania. Kind of crazy, but lots of people are making a variation of this. Very simple, but very effective. This is the one lateral raise machine I think that I still have not modified, but I'm going to. Here's some really old sped up footage. What I love about this machine is the ability to move it up and down. So you can do standing, seated, or kneeling. That's the best function of the machine, and it's a very good strength curve. The arms need to be shortened just a smidge, but I use this consistently as my only lateral raise machine option for several years, even while I had my gym in my basement. It's just very simple. I think the kneeling function is the best. And the nice thing is you can face in and face out. I'm going to manipulate the strength curve a little bit, and I will kind of shorten the movement arm just a smidge to make it better. But you can use this with, I used it with my Titan prone row bench, but you can see I've got just the hammer strength seated 70-degree bench, and it just kind of literally just becomes sort of a seated lateral raise versus a kneeling lateral raise machine. 14 is this this homemade black lateral raise machine I bought off another dude that made it. Watson out of the UK actually makes a very similar machine. The Watson seated lateral raise, actually a very relatively slick machine. I like the cam on this. It's got a nice counterweight, and as you'll see, I love this position to do a lateral raise movement, and it's just very stable. The handle, you know, the handles don't give you a ton of pre-stretch, but a cool machine. I'll show you several things I love about this. I've extended the handles. What makes this machine cool is the shape of the cam. The shape of the cam follows the strength curve of the deltoids absolutely perfectly. This is a really cool machine. I've showed this on here before, but you can grab the handles far up, you can grab the handles mid, or you can grab the handles directly right next to your side. So I lengthen the handles about 18 inches. Makes a massive difference. But look at that cam. It's perfect. And you'll see the cool thing is you can face in or face out. I'm going to show you in a couple other machines. Lengthening the handles makes all the difference in a seated lateral raise machine. Everyone I see make this type of machine, the handles are way too short. But facing out from a seated lateral raise machine movement is absolute money. Simple but so good. The cam is just phenomenal on this. Did you see the range of motion I could get? Under tension. You'll see with a couple other machines, similar machines, you can only do that one arm at a time. 13 is this another homemade, I showed this last year in one of my reviews, homemade lateral raise, seated lateral raise by another gym bro that I bought it off of. Really cool machine. The difference is there's a joint here versus the last one, and these joints move in and out. I cut off the stopper so you get way more pre-stretch. And I'll show you, you can use this facing in and facing out, and the arm length is adjustable. So it's just an awesome machine. Jag Strong Gym has something similar that Zoid made. God of Ohio makes some custom machines like this. The angle is just perfect, and you can see how it takes into account the articulation of the elbow in this machine versus the last one. But the cams on both of these are phenomenal. Range of motion is phenomenal. And again, you can use it facing out or facing in. Really cool machine. And again, notice the shape of those cams. They're right on. 13 is the lateral raise function of the total shoulder machine. Now, most people I see actually don't really use this optimally. They don't, it's crap form. But let me show you how I like to use it. Show you a quadruple drop set. I literally do, when I use this machine, as we talked about before, to really hit all heads and all angles, I do a quadruple drop set just in one. It's really cool with this machine. So you can see I start with without using my hands, so my wrists are against, and I start with the palms back, and then I'm going to superset to the palms down, hitting different part of the deltoid completely. And then what I'm going to do is just grab the handles and lean forward a little bit. Traditionally, the key with this movement as you do it is think about reaching for the wall. Reach high and wide, and keep your hands as wide as possible, and just lock your upper back in, so you're trying to minimize trap involvement. And then literally just kneel down in front of it. You got to crouch down a little bit to get your shoulders aligned with the joint, and then just lean in, and you can hit a traditional lateral raise. But phenomenal way to just get crazy stimulation. Simple, but your deltoids will be on fire. You guys that have this machine, try this quadruple drop set. 11 is the Power Plus lateral raise. I kind of showed this last year. Put an extra horn not too long ago, and I cut off the stopper. So haven't fully refurbed it yet, but these two modifications make a massive difference. All right, so Nautilus obviously makes a selectorized version of this, which is much more common than the Power Plus version. I like the Power Plus version, obviously, because I can manipulate the strength curve, and you're fixed by a rigid cam and a selectorized machine. But check out the way you can use it. This is the better way to use it. Look at the extra range of motion since I cut off the stoppers. Now, I want you to notice I'm going to go from full internal rotation to full external rotation during this movement, both facing in and facing out, honestly. But the extra range of motion is phenomenal. That extra horn makes a massive difference with just the stretch. Now, the one arm at a time, honestly, quote unquote best optimal way to use it. Just face to the side, one arm at a time. But facing in feels phenomenal as well. And again, notice full internal to full external rotation. I'm rotating my humerus around that pad. It's just easier to do on a round pad than a flat pad, but you can still technically do it on a flat pad. So much better because the stretch is crazy now. My delts are on fire, but you can see the different variations you can do facing in and facing out. And what I want you to notice again, I'm going to show you this on multiple machines today, is how when I really want to hit all the deltoids, the ultimate way to do it, start internally rotated, no hands, and as I come up, I externally rotate to full external rotation at the top of the movement. You'll see as you follow deltoid fibers how you get crazy stimulus. Is the core lateral raise. Now, NewTek makes the same machine. Very similar to like the Medex Avenger lateral raise. I'll show you a clip of the Medex Avenger. So here's David Feather using it in his gym in Hawaii. I think he's got like 2 or 3 of these machines. They're so rare. But it's the same as the Selector, as I'll show you in a little bit. But obviously, it's a plate-loaded version. So cool cam linkage system on this. There isn't a ton of excursion, but as David's showing you, honestly, the best way to use it is one arm at a time. I'd love to find this maybe eventually. So with this is the back pad just comes out quite a ways, 6 different positions out to lean you forward a little bit. The handles follow right along the scapular plane, and there's a pre-stretched lever, so you don't have to start in the bottom. You can start kind of 3 to 4 centimeters. Now what you'll see I did is I more or less added an extra horn again, like I showed you on the Power Plus. Now you'll notice with this machine I'm going to show you, the only thing I don't like about it is it toggles at the top. About 90 to 100 degrees it toggles, so that's why I put bands in there if I want to get extra range of motion. I've had this for a while. I guess I haven't made a review, but just notice the extra horn I added. You can see from this view how the stretch is crazy. It just toggles at about 90 to 100 degrees, so I add the band to get the extra tension. Now with this modification, I honestly haven't even used the original horn. It's just the original horn, there's a lot of mechanical advantage built into it. But the cool thing is I'm showing you is you can face out and face in. Now look at how I don't really, without using the handles, you can see I'm internally and externally rotating here along those elbow pads. Just really comfortable way. Here's another instance facing in. Right there I'm showing you that's the top range of motion, 2 arms at a time. Not a bad thing. Obviously above that is trap. But look, you can just look at my delts on fire with this machine facing in. Love the facing in, facing out. And again, the adjustable back pad is the difference with this and the Avenger. And honestly, it's probably best even one arm at a time, as I'll show you. Just like the Avenger, just like the Medex, one arm at a time is where this shines. But the cool thing is, opposed to the Avenger, you can do this in and out. The Avenger, you can't really face in comfortably with the machine. It's just face out. 9 is actually not a lateral raise machine, but it's the Hoist Rocket bicep curl. Now, Hoist Rocket has their own dedicated plate-loaded lateral raise machine. I did not like that. I think it's actually crap. This is honestly way better. The range of motion is better, and I just like the adjustability of the handles. And I'll show you I face in and face out. And the cool thing with this, you can use your body weight, and then you can superset to taking your feet off and having less body weight, and superset in and out. As it comes up and the seat reclines back, there's a drop off. So here's just some footage from a YouTube short I made a while back doing this movement. So check it out. So it has to be on an alternating fashion, or the weight stack hits the top. But one arm at a time. It's a Y raise, not really a lateral raise. So you're really optimally stimulating both anterior and medial delt, and mostly anterior delt. But it's a crazy stimulus. And then I superset facing out of the pad to facing into the pad. And because the seat reclines, like I said, there is definitely a drop off at that top 1/3 of the range of motion, which is why this is awesome. But you have to do it one arm at a time, or the weight stack will hit. But honestly, better than the plate-loaded Hoist Rocket lateral raise. Number 8 is the Icarian lateral raise machine. Now, I sold this about 3-4 years ago. I had it for a long time. Phenomenal machine. Arsenal makes the same thing. I'll show you some clips of me using it. Smaller person, it's actually pretty good. The range of motion is just a little bit limited, and you're limited by a circular cam. Here's some old footage of me using it before I sold it. Facing out, you can face out and face in. The nice thing is, those of you who use this know the handles rotate. But you'll see when people use this, you're not going to be able to get past 90 degrees. Not that you have to, but the cam limits your range of motion. There is a small counterweight, which makes a little bit of a difference. But again, the shape of the cam is not necessarily ideal for a strength curve, but up to 90 degrees, that 30 to 90 degrees is money. So you guys know OG Hollis from Instagram. This is him using it. You can see he's a little shorter, so he's got to stand on something. But with his frame, someone his size, actually, this machine works phenomenally well. Look at the range of motion he can get compared to what I could get. He can come up even higher. And then you guys know John out of Utah. He's got a phenomenal gym. He's got both the older version, which is this one, and the newer version. So you can see the older circular cam. He's a bigger guy, though. And you'll see sometimes you have to step back. Your range of motion is not quite as good. And this is his newer version with these cool custom handles. So the custom handles have freedom of motion, which allow you to do kind of rear delt. As he's talking about here, they definitely work better one arm at a time. Just slightly awkward, and it takes a little bit of getting used to. Again, if this had a cam that would accommodate the strength curve of the deltoids and the lateral raise movement, it would be way better, but still cool machine. 7 is the Atlantis standing lateral raise. I've got the Gen 2 version, the E252 with a pad, although the pad, it would be better if the pad was adjustable in and out. You can put your head on it to kind of lean into it. But I like this better than the Icarian because the angled handles and because the range of motion is greater. There is a little bit of a cam, it could be better. Much bigger counterweight than the Icarian to adjust for the strength curve a little bit, but it's just smoother and the range of motion is superior to the Icarian. So here's my brother and I using it several months back. You can see how comfortably you can come above 90, almost all the way up 2 arms at a time without having to use 1 arm at a time. And there's just, especially with taller, bigger people, it just fits your frame better. You just have to stand back. Most of the time, you can see here I'm using there's different ways to use this. I sometimes use a wristless grip, but look at how high I can come above it. But the key is you got to stand back and just align your... NewTek makes a similar machine. I've kind of mentioned on my channel before that has the Velcro grips you can adjust to take your grip out, which is a cool machine. Again, you're limited by a circular cam. So you guys know Baba Boy's Equipment, great dude. Check out his channel. He's got a video on this. This is just a clip from his video. You can see it's got a little bit more pre-stretch built into it than the Atlantis. A little bit more adjustability. You can grab this handle to do 1 arm at a time. But again, circular cam, I mean, but the benefit is the wristless with the straps. Number 6 is the Atlantis E352, the seated version. I like the seat a little bit better. Now, what I'll say in its original form, I'll show you a video how I modified it. You can see here's a little reel I put on Instagram a while ago. This is the original machine. What I want you to notice is how short the handles are and how limited you are with range of motion. Now look at what's happened when I've lengthened the handles. This is my son using it. You can face in and face out. The money on this movement is leaning into a swiveling pad facing out. Rear delt, medial delt, anterior delt. Way better stimulation facing out in this position than even facing in. Makes a massive difference. This is such a good machine now. Again, still a good machine in its original form, but way better now. The handles are too short. I lengthened the handles 12 to 13 inches, makes a massive difference. So I'll show you can face in and face out. The only problem with this is in order to get past 90 degrees, you got to do 1 arm at a time. The other issue is this. Seat starts up too high. If you're super tall, you're going to have an issue lining your shoulders up. About 6'1", 6'2", 6'1". And like I said, I have it at the lowest setting and my shoulders barely, I have to kind of lean down and crunch down a little to get my shoulders to align with the pivot point. If you're super tall, that's the issue. The seat needs to start and have more lower settings. This is the Panada remake, but I'm going to say the Panada multi-flight. Now, I'll show you a video. I made a video of this recently. So this is from a YouTube video I made recently. You can see I showed you in this particular video how I superset. I use these straps and I superset pinky up, palm down, thumb up. Hits the entire deltoid. That's the beauty of this. Again, shoulders need volume. They need angles. They need correct trajectory. They need variations because they're so complex. So there you go, pinky up, and you're going to see I'm going to go palm down, just traditional, and then I'm going to go thumb up. Now, I showed you I got these free-floating D handles that take my wrist out of it that mimic the NewTek lateral raise. The reason I like this machine so much is it gives you way more pre-stretch than any other machine, even that NewTek. But as I showed you in the video, I superset from kneeling to standing. It's just, even though it's a circular cam, it's just freaking crazy stimulation on your deltoids. Obviously, the quality of this is not near as good as the quality of the Atlantis, but functionally, from a functional standpoint, this is a superior machine, particularly when you use it as I show you. 4 is the Medix selectorized lateral raise machine. I've had this for a long time. It's got a phenomenal cam. I wish I could show you the cam. Look at that short cam. See the short cam? And watch as that comes up as you drop off. You come up to about 110 degrees. See the drop off? It's crazy. You have that with the technology of the selectorized frictionless Medix weight stack. So beauty of this machine, 6 different settings. I'm going to show you the best way to use it is 1 arm at a time, super setting 6 to 1 or 2. Just a phenomenal machine. The cam on this is just about perfect. It really is. The issue is most people I see use this don't know what they're freaking doing. They use way too much weight and they're trying to do 2 arms at a time. Just like the Medix pullover and several other machines, this machine is designed to use 1 arm at a time. And you're not going to get the full benefit unless you come above 90 degrees. So we're down to the wire, the last 3. Number 3 is the Cybex Eagle kneeling lateral curl. I'll show you how I like to use it, facing in, facing out. The other thing I've made a video about, you'll notice I cut these stoppers off, which limited your range of motion. But look at the cam. It's actually, the cam, in my opinion, is not quite as good as the Medix, but see how it's a small cam. You will absolutely get a drop off, but you got to come above 90 degrees. It's a phenomenal machine. And honestly, once you do a kneeling lateral raise, you'll see why, honestly, that may be the most optimal position to not cheat and to truly isolate and stimulate your deltoids in a stable way. Number 2 is the Strive seated lateral raise. So I have the roller version, and let me show you why I think it's superior to the flat version. The flat version is still good, but I love the roller version. So here's the flat version. Nice piece. The benefit of this machine over the roller one I'm going to show you that I own is you can adjust the starting position. You can't do that on the roller one I have, at least. You can on the new Prime. But you're limited by these flat pads. So the nice thing is you can adjust the starting position depending on your frame. But I'm going to show you that doesn't matter with how I've modified my round pad. I bought this recently. I'll show you these handles that you can do cool partials. But 2 things, if you guys have this machine, I want you to do. First of all, cut off the stoppers that limit the top range of motion, okay? See that stopper right there? That limits your range of motion. Second of all, remove the stopper on the bottom. This is on the bottom. This had a rubber on. This is an older piece. But you get an extra 2 inches of range of motion. So the benefit of the flat is it brings you in closer. But now it doesn't make a difference. So here's some sped up footage from a video I made not that long ago. You can see these handles I added right here. I'm doing lengthened partials. Which is a cool feature because it hits the bottom. But this is the best way to use it as I showed you in that video. Look at the range of motion. What you probably can't see because it's sped up so much is you can go from full internal to external rotation. You externally rotate your humerus while you come up, and you're going to go from anterior delt, from posterior medial to anterior delt, from the bottom to the top of the movement. That's the cool thing with this is the ability to internally and externally rotate your humerus while you abduct your humerus. So that's the cool thing. Here's sort of the handles I added just to mimic the partials you can see from a different angle. But works way better when you don't use the handles that come with the machine. But this is the other benefit. You can turn it into a 70-degree Nautilus. You turn out of the machine. Number 1, what do you guys think it'll be? Unfortunately, it's a machine none of you guys have gotten to use because it's something I've customized. So this is my customized, modified Premier, that company out of Texas, seated / standing lateral raise. It's based off of Gym 80. I made a video about this several months ago before I modified anything. But check this thing out. What I did, I brought the seat way out. I made the handles way longer. I've got this custom chest pad that rolls in and out. It moves in and out. And you can see I've modified the strength curve. Super, the smoothest lateral raise machine you'll ever use in your life. All right, so check this out. I knew this would be good, but it definitely exceeded my expectations. The leverage, the linkage was really good, but there's just a lot of flaws with the original machine. So obviously, as you can see, I can do bent over, or I can do straight upright, and multiple different angles in between. But the strength curve on this is absolutely phenomenal because I can manipulate it in micro increments. And this is the money movement right here, facing away from the machine. I'm telling you, once more people do this type of movement, of course, the problem with the lateral raise machines is the handles are too short to do it. But once more people start doing the movement this way, you won't be able to go back to facing in just by itself. The facing out stimulus is superior, I'm telling you. But check that out. Look at the stimulation of the posterior and medial delt, and even the anterior delt with that particular movement. Now you can see even here, I'm using those handles I showed you on my multi-flight to take my wrist completely out of it, with the thumb up, the pinky up, and the palm down. Like, it's just a crazy smooth machine. The gym equipment community, the fitness community needs to experience. Silky smooth. Shout out to Will that made that custom chest pad for me. Makes a massive difference. But so smooth. Once we can get that machine into other people's hands, like, you'll realize, like I do, there isn't another lateral raise machine that even compares to that. So that's my top 10 lateral raise machines. Let me know what you guys think. Which one's your favorite that you saw? Are there any that I have not mentioned that I've missed? Like, comment, subscribe below. Let me know what you guys think. Appreciate your support. Have an amazing day.